you assess the season to date for your group?
Well, I think it's been a very unique season. I think that obviously lots has transpired in a period of time that you sit back and you look at it. It's all the different things that the group has had to endure. But it's been an emotional season. It's certainly had its ups, had its downs. But for us, I think the main focus has to be this stretch run, this next part of it, and we've had a lot of games postponed, pushed into this second part here, and we need to take advantage of that opportunity moving forward.
How does the later trade deadline impact things, especially given where your group is at?
Well, trade deadline's obviously always a unique situation for any organization to see where they're at and what the opportunities are in front of them. Given the fact that we had the supposed Olympic break and it pushed it back, I guess that it is a little bit of a blessing that we were able to find the days in the Olympic break to put those games in, so that the trade deadline is still kind of a relevant date when it comes to the number of games played and where you're at. So. For us, it's again, we've got a lot of hockey to play before the trade deadline here yet. So there's lots of runway here still for us to do the things we need to do.
Kevin, you watched your team play a game like last night, and I'm sure you must have loved what you saw from them. Any thoughts on why we haven't seen that Winnipeg Jets team more often this year?
I think you have seen it. You've seen it in different spurts and times, but I think you also see some inconsistencies. And there's many different reasons. You can certainly sit back and talk about it. Like, I loved our game in St. Louis. I thought it was a great game. The road trip where we didn't get much success. I think if you look at the individual games, the Washington game was a good game. We end up losing in overtime. We go into Pittsburgh with 3 games in less than 4 nights type thing, and have playing a real good sound team game. All of a sudden, a span of just a little bit of time, and it goes from I think it was shutout to shootout is what the comment was. So you do see it. You don't see the results sometimes, and that becomes frustrating, I think. So, but because it is a results-orientated game. But I thought that there has been some areas here that obviously we need to improve. We keep talking about the fact that we do need to improve defensively. I think that's I think if you look at the success that we had last year in the Oilers series, it wasn't from offense, it was from playing sound defense, and that ultimately when you get into grinders like you did last night, we're not sitting here talking about the offense, although you scored on the power play. That's what generated it. We had some real good grade A chances that we never capitalized on. But that's the game. But ultimately, you're talking about the grinder and the defensive effort, and that's more than not in this league when you are playing and when you do get on a run, it's because of that. You're going to get your outlier games where you're going to things are going to bounce in for you, and it's like nothing can go wrong. And we haven't had too many of those this year, but certainly it all has to stem from that two-way effort.
So does it make those? You talked to St. Louis and then last night, but does it make games then like the Vancouver game and the Philadelphia game even more sort of head-scratching to you, that there seems to be these peaks and valleys?
Yeah, so I think every team is going to go through and have those head-scratching games, and I think. For us, obviously, you can, even dissect it down a little bit more, but that would, you're not in here to try and make excuses. You're trying to, find, ways to win. But since I think the beginning of this, or the middle of December here, December 21st or 22nd on or something like that, like we've had 28 or 29 different people within the organization's travel party, players, staff, go through COVID. The thing that I think has been real challenging for us, and I know it's been kind of mentally challenging even for me, is that we haven't been that team that had the massive outbreak that had games postponed and shut down, simply because we couldn't play because of COVID. We've had, I think the most we've had in one day is 4, but it's been that trickle effect. And I know I found myself here before the All-Star break, because now we're changing the testing policies, is when the test results are coming out every day, and the level of anxiety that I went through just from managing the roster and trying to manage the salary cap and the different situations, It's amazing. Like I don't think I'll ever forget the game, in Florida at home here where, 5 o'clock we get a phone call that, Josh Morrissey is positive. And, you're going into that game, you're feeling, excited about, what being home for the first time since, even though with no fans, being home for the first time since December, I think the 19th, and you're excited. And, you get that dagger where, one of your top defensemen is not there. So, I thought the coaches have done a good job of trying to, manage that. It's literally been that next man or next one up, mentality. And in a lot of cases, I think that next person's taken a solo lap for their first game. I think we've had 5 this year. I think was in 4 of them since that part of December here. So again, there's lots of things that certainly you wish had gone maybe differently for this group. Wish that maybe they've been rewarded for some of those other games where the puck goes off a skate and in the net, and all of a sudden you're down before you even start. So, but all we can do now here is focus on this next stretch and hopefully get some guys back from COVID, get some guys healthy. Although that's probably going to be a little ways away for certainly for an important player like Nick Ehlers, in our lineup, and but it's an opportunity for other players as well. And there's always times where I get phone calls from agents talking about players, getting their opportunity. Well, opportunity is here for a lot of them, and it's incumbent upon them to to take it while they can.
You talked about the forced look.
Hang on.
You're talking about the forced look into the future that the organization has had here. What have you seen in that look that you've had?
Well, again, I think, we obviously knew we had some talent in players like Ville Heinola and Sandberg and Perfetti. You're getting a chance to, to see it now. But I think they're also understanding that it's a tough league, and it's important that they learn how to play, and that they learn how to play the right way, and that they learn how to what it's going to take for them to continue to grow and play to their strengths. I think a lot of times in this organization, when we've had the opportunity to put a 19-year-old in or a 20-year-old and let them play, the expectations of that lineup and of that roster maybe wasn't at the level that it is here right now, where this group here, we spent a lot of time, we've obviously brought in different players. There's obviously lots of expectations in this group, and that no more so than they put on their own self in that dressing room. So it's great to see that they're playing, and hopefully we can continue to go down that development path, but it's difficult to develop in the National Hockey League and try and be successful and win and go through COVID and deal with top 6 injuries like Blake Wheeler and Nikolai Ehlers, who both bring so much to the team in different dynamics. So, but it's exciting. We've got some players in the pipeline, in Chaz Lucius and Chibrikov that are Reshevsky, that again, there's talent there, but when you're in the National Hockey League, you're kind of focusing on the now. And but it's great to see a player like Cole. Really wish he would have had that opportunity to play in the World Juniors. We had talked with his agents and talked about the situation that hopefully he would have a good start with the Moose, and then get that World Junior under his belt, and then get an opportunity to see where things were at with us. And unfortunately, he doesn't have that opportunity for the World Juniors. But I think it speaks volumes to his preparedness to step in here now. Just really feel for a player like Sandberg, who gets hurt first shift in training camp, endures the ankle injury, and then now came in. I thought he played exceptional from the time that he's set foot on the ice there in Detroit, and now down with another injury. But he's learning about the National Hockey League, and just that you can never take each day for granted.
Because of COVID and the injuries and all the stuff that's been happening, maybe it's been hard to get a look at the job Dave Lowry has done, because there's been so much outside stuff he's had to deal with. But what's your take on how he's handled those challenges and just being behind an NHL bench as a head coach for the first time?
Well, I thought he and the staff have handled the challenge as well. I think that again, it's it was an emotional time, I think, for everybody when things transitioned. But at the end of the day, we still need to find results here, and I think when transitioned, we were 3 games over 500. Obviously the Washington game happened that day, so now we're 2 games over 500. So we need to find a way to make some progress, and that's where you wish that some of those games, like the Washington game or even that Boston game where they score the late power play goal, like you'd like to either grind another point out of there or get some reward for the game in Pittsburgh. So certainly, again, I think you look at the individual areas. I think the penalty kills improved. I think that the power play has kind of been the same. It struggled for a while, it scored for a while. So from that aspect of things, I think still we need to find a way to win on a consistent basis, and that's going to be playing a team game, and no matter who's in the lineup. And I know that's easy to say because again, you want the players can only prepare what they have to prepare for, but you'd like to see some consistency, you'd like to see some chemistry that can develop, and hopefully when we get out of this round of COVID, that maybe we'll find a way to get lucky here and have a consistent lineup moving forward. Injury-wise, like I say, there's still going to be some challenges here with some players on the timelines in getting back, to full strength.
Do you feel there's been enough buy-in from the players into Dave's system so far?
Yeah, I don't think it's a buy-in, question. I don't know that things have changed that dramatically. I think, Dave obviously has put a strong emphasis on a lot of things that I think he believes, and I think, universally everybody believes, to be, important in winning. I think that, again, there's a level of consistency that a player needs to get, night to night. I think one of the things that was really odd, for us, is that, we transitioned into Dave and we played a game, and then all of a sudden all these games started falling away from us, from a postponement standpoint. And, so we had long stretches where, you'd just practice and guys would get out of that game rhythm. Then you'd play a game, you'd get excited, you'd ramp yourself up for it. And then we'd have long stretches again where we wouldn't play, so in the middle of the season, players aren't looking for that. Players are looking for a rhythm. They're looking, to have that kind of every other night mentality. That's what a National Hockey League player, I think, plays at their best, is when they can balance that level of preparedness and fatigue, and they know how to manage their body. I don't know that you can really find ways to manage, big blocks like that, knowing that the games are going to be pushed, somewhere else, and had we been a team that maybe got shut down because of COVID during that time, fine, you can rationalize that, you ramp yourself up and you go. But I thought they did a good job. They've done a good job of getting the players to buy into staying as focused as they can, during those periods of time.
And I'm just wondering, because your core is old, and I know some of the players say, well, it's been a younger team this year because of what's happened with COVID and all that, but is it perplexing a bit to you that you almost need to, you need more from the veterans? Like there's not enough engagement at times from those guys in those games. You go through a 6-game losing streak, and it seems like there's not enough leadership from the core. I don't know, maybe.
Well, I think you can, if you want to lump it into a 6-game losing streak and without dissecting it, then sure, you can say, well, it's this or it's that. But I think if you dissect those 6 games, there's going to be, times where you're not going to be as excited about that game and that. But I think, I went through it and kind of mentioned, individual game by game, and when you start to dissect it, it's a fine line between winning and losing sometimes. But there's no doubt that, the way we're constructed from a cap perspective, the way that, the roster has been built, it's a top-heavy type of group in the sense that, you need, those players to play. Like Blake Wheeler probably had his best game, from coming off of COVID. And if you go back and even look at Blake, and this is how the year has even evolved even in itself. Like, Blake got COVID first. Mark Scheifele got it, the very next day, I think. Well, that was back during the time where you had to quarantine for 14 full days and stay away from the team, so that dynamic was different, and I think it hurt those 2 guys getting out of the gates. And you look at the game that Blake played in Vancouver there the day he got hurt, it was an exceptional game, and it was like, he's back. No, he's out. You know, and you know, then you look at just the emotional roller coaster of, okay, you know, your captain's coming back into the lineup. All of a sudden, you know, you lose one of your dynamic wingers for X period of time here, still undetermined, you know, from his injury. So, you know, again, there's no excuses. You know, that's pro sports. That's the ups and the downs of it. And you know, as a group, you know, we have to find a way. But I feel good about this group. I'm confident with this group, and I know that, you know, again, I know the level of leadership in that room, and I know the level of buy-in, and I know the level of care. So it's a challenge.
Kevin, you had a really obviously busy summer, addressed several areas that the team needed. You mentioned here you obviously haven't hit expectations at this point of the season. I'm wondering how much you feel is on your shoulders for where you are now, but maybe more importantly, how you improve moving forward.
Well, obviously, you know, when you're the general manager, it's always on your shoulders. You feel responsible for all aspects of your organization, whether it's, you know, the on-ice product here, the on-ice product with the Moose, the level of prospects in your system, again, the lack of draft picks that you've had over the few years to try to, you know, chase it down, of which, you know, you wouldn't change anything of it, but there's always a price, you know, that you kind of pay. And you know, for us, we're in an interesting situation. We made those trades during the summer to address those needs. We knew that we were going to be up against the cap. You know, we start the season with a 22-man roster because of the cap, and have really, you know, kind of rode through the injury side of it, you know, from an LTI standpoint by putting, you know, Wheeler's money in LTI and Nikolai Ehlers' money into LTI now. But you want to become a healthy team so that you can see, you know, where things are at with your group. But that comes at a cost as well. Like when and if we do get healthy again, we're going to be right at that cap number again. So, you know, people talk about what are you going to do at the deadline? Are you going to be a buyer? Are you going to be a seller? You know, where are you going to be at? So certainly there's lots of things that you have to focus on, but you know, the reality of the situation is if we are a healthy group, we are going to be at the cap. Anything we do will have to be money in, you know, or money out. I think for us, you know, for me, my focus, you know, throughout this whole time has been to try maybe to find hockey deals. If there's, you know, some hockey deals out there that can come into play. A lot of times they're tougher to maybe do during the season, so maybe it's, you know, those are things that you're going to be doing in the off season, but certainly our focus full and foremost is now. And if there's a way, you know, we can improve the team or an area of the team right now through a hockey trade or, then we're going to certainly look at that.
Things don't improve over the next month as the trade deadline comes up. Are you prepared to be sellers? Are you prepared to do a shakeup just given, or is that too drastic in one half season?
I think it's too premature to sit here and say where things are going to go because, you know, again, I think that you can fall into that trap very, very easily of trying to look too far ahead. You know, as a management group, you're preparing all the time for different things. We had our pro scouting meetings in Philadelphia. You know, after the St. Louis game, we had 2 days off on the road, so unique situation where we could bring our scouts in maybe and have a face-to-face meeting with them, which was good. And so we discussed a lot of different things, but again, to try to sit here and crystal ball where things are going to be and what your mentality is going to be, you know, when things are still 6 weeks away and so much hockey that we have, in front of us, it's tough to say right now. But again, I like to think that, you know, we're going to see, more of these kind of grinder games as we continue to get going, but it's going to be a challenge. I think one of the things that is going to be a challenge is obviously managing the fatigue, but the non-practice factor, I think, is going to be it's going to be difficult because, you know, you have to balance things in the National Hockey League, the rest, but you also have to, you know, find the way to keep sharp.
Kevin, you made a big hockey trade just over a year ago with Pierre-Luc Dubois. I imagine one of the bright spots that you must be really happy with this season has been his play. I know he's out with COVID right now, but his play and just sort of going forward, have there been any talks yet? Obviously, he's a key kind of focus, but is that something you're comfortable just kind of pushing into the off season?
Well, so I had a conversation with Pierre-Luc's agent over the All-Star break and you know, using the time from the break standpoint to kind of check in with each other and go from there. But I don't know that it's really at a point in time where we need to get into any contract discussions right now. It's certainly, I think everyone's focus here is about trying to stay focused in the second half here and keep it going. But Pierre-Luc is, he's done the things that we thought he would do. Again, challenging year last year for him, going through the things that he had to go through and the changes. But hats off to him for being the player that we thought he was going to be and continue to grow. And he's a young player still too. It's interesting. Like he's 23 years old and obviously has brought a lot to the organization and will continue to bring a lot.
I wanted to ask one quick one on a prospect that you didn't mention earlier, Nathan Smith. Is there anything you can tell us about? He's having a really solid year, obviously. What his status?
Sure. So actually, after the St. Louis game, I flew into Minnesota, and we actually went to dinner that night. And just obviously, we knew he was going to the Olympics, and real excited for him, and so we're hopeful that there's an opportunity. Now they've got a really good team, so they could potentially win the national or go for the national championship, which again it would be a long run. But we're hopeful that there's a chance that we could see him at the end of the year, and he's someone that probably we would have seen a lot of this year, playing in our lineup because he is a very skilled player, and I think really would complement a lot of the players that we have within the organization here. So we had a good conversation, and looking forward to watching him on the Olympic side of things there, and then see where things go after his season.
There's been a lot of focus on Mark Scheifele specifically, his play. It's not so much the points, maybe it's the defensive side of the game, but I'm curious. You know him well. What's your sense of his commitment to be part of this turnaround this season, and maybe just his commitment to this team in the near future?
Yeah, so Mark obviously is one of those players that really works on his game. Works really hard at fine tuning things. I think that if you probably asked him, he's probably not overly happy with where his things are at from his standpoint here right now. But I know he's certainly working hard at it. I think he got a slow start out of the gate, and maybe that frustrated him a little bit. But he's an elite player, and I've never questioned his commitment to the organization, now or certainly in the future from the day he signed his contract with us. And you ask a lot of these young players, and it takes a lot of growth. It takes a lot of experience. There's lots of when you build the team like we have with the roster that we have and the players that we have, you ask players then to grow into different roles and assume different responsibilities. And some players can run with different areas of it. Some players, it takes time. Some players put way too much pressure on themselves, and sometimes again you don't know how to come out of it. But there's a strong work ethic, in that room. There's a strong work ethic, amongst players like Scheif, and it's just a matter of finding that consistency with our group, moving forward here.
Kevin,
When you say that, you need to see progress though from this group moving forward, do you put that more on the players right now, or the coaching staff for this team to take that next step?
Well, there's only the only people that can actually really effectuate things are the players, and they're the ones that go out there on a given night, and so again ultimately you have to look at the players. I think the coaches, you certainly you want the coaches to to put the right kind of game plan, the right thoughts, the right feelings. Sometimes you got to give them a pep talk. Sometimes you might have to show them some video that maybe they don't like. So that's certainly the coach's job. But the players obviously are the ones that can go out there and do it. And ultimately that's why I still feel confident in this group, because I think there's a good group of players there that can find a way to come together and overcome yet another challenge that this group has had to face.
So to the point of what you just said, clearly you still have a lot of belief in this group. I know you don't like to peek into the future too much, but there's a tall task ahead of them. If they don't make the playoffs, how is that going to be viewed by this organization?
Well, again, I think we always again, you talked about at the beginning of the year what the expectations of this group are, and I think there's no greater expectation than those players, and again, we'll deal with whatever we have to deal with, at that point in time. I think that, there's to sit here and try to prognosticate, then why would you play the games? So for us, again, there's opportunity for players to lead. There's opportunities for players to take advantage of the situation that they're in with respect to whether it's COVID or injuries. And I fully expect that, those players to take advantage of that, and then we'll see where things are at.
Kevin, you have a couple of very important UFAs or pending UFAs. I mean, what can you tell us about discussions there, and how will that impact your approach to the deadline? I know you've used self-rentals before, but
Yeah, we haven't really had, from a UFA standpoint, we haven't had any discussions with any of them. I think, we're obviously, you're anxious and hopeful to see maybe some things get some direction from a cap perspective as to where things might go. And I know, they talk about the fact that maybe it'll go up $1 million. So you're essentially in a kind of a flat cap scenario as well. We've got obviously the RFAs, there's different summertime challenges, different summertime things that we may be in a different situation than we have in other years. I think, goes back to me focusing, or telling you that I was focusing more on hockey deals. So we'll see where things, are at, with us at that point in time. But right now, our sole focus is trying to, push this group right now.
Kevin, just one on the Moose. I think there's been 12 players, 11, 12 that have played games with both teams this year. Just the job Mark and company are doing down there. They've used something like 40 players already this year, and they're fifth in the AHL right now. I mean, how do you explain kind of what they've managed to do down there?
Well, I think they've found a way to, to find, some consistency, in their game. I think that, it's a team that's, very, very, structured. They've had, obviously they've had a real strong defense. I think, for the most part, our top prospects, and a lot of our top prospects are, were good young defensemen that were there. So I think that gave them a real good foundation. I think both goaltenders, played well. And then, the guys that the goaltenders that were brought in when we had both guys here on taxi, played well as well. So it's, it speaks volumes, I think, to the job that the coaches have done there. But I think the depth that the organization had. And the American Hockey League is it's an interesting, dynamic is that, when you play a real sound team game and you can move pucks out of your own end, I think, you have a chance to win, more often than not. And that's, I think that's been the strength of that team.
Kevin, just a quick one on Josh Morrissey. I mean, how would you describe his season and what it's meant for your group to have him back playing at that top pairing level?
Well, yeah, again, our best players have to be our best players, and I'd put him in that category. That he's one of our top players, and I think what he's had to go through in his personal life over the last couple last year especially. But I think that it weighs on a player. I think the whole thing is emotionally tough, and we try to support the players as much as we can. We have different things there for players to lean on from a personal standpoint, to make sure that they're doing well from a mental perspective, because I think that's first and foremost the priority with with us within the organization is the person, and it's great to see his play getting back to the level that he would expect it to be, and certainly that we expect it to be, and he's a big he is a big part, and he's going to have to be a big part of this push down the stretch.